What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another video, and I can't believe it's already been 1 year, actually over a year since I've posted on this channel, but I'm excited to say we're officially back. I still remember doing pop-ups. I still remember doing all of the coordination for the construction for the first one and documenting the process, and it's crazy to think that we've been in Yoka Madrona for over a year now. We just passed our 1 year anniversary, and there's been a lot that we've learned. So I thought that it would be a good time to hop back on the channel to start documenting the process for cafe number 2, which we'll talk about later, and also just to reflect on my experience of being a cafe owner for a year now. That being said, before we get into the video, I want to express my gratitude for each and every single one of you, because we wouldn't be where we're at today if it weren't for you, whether it's through your support at the cafe, your support through the channel, or your support through Instagram. I am forever grateful, and I'm so excited to continue that journey with you all. But before we get into the video, I have a pop-up series of a few questions that a few of you have asked. And the first question that one of you asked is, did you self-fund or did you get a loan? And the quick and short answer to that question is we did self-fund it. We started as a pop-up, put ourselves in a bunch of debt to get to where we're at today, but we used it as marketing dollars to prove the concept. And now we're here. Question number 2, why did we choose Madrona as the first neighborhood to be in? And truthfully, when we first found that spot, it was overpriced. The listing price is way out of our budget, nowhere near where we thought we would be at regarding like a purchase price for a business. But the spot came back around in our pocket, and we were able to make moves on this space. And it was a community that we saw a future in because of its security, its safety, its longevity when it comes to like family orientation, this, that, and a third. So that's how we found it. And we're so grateful to be there, and we'll be there for the next 5 to 10 years. This is a big question, and something that we get all the time is, how much did it cost to start? For the entire project, including equipment, inventory, and construction costs, it costed around $135K, more or less. I don't know the exact dollar amount, but I do know we budgeted for like $75,000. That $135 includes the business purchase. So I will say that was a huge opportunity and a huge win. It's not something that comes up often, honestly, especially now with all the cafes that are opening up in the city and just around the States and around the world. I feel like third spaces in cafes specifically are super hard to come by for that price, but we were very fortunate and blessed to be at that location and to just fall in line with that budget. But with that being said, if you guys have any other questions that you want to include into the pop-up series questions that I answer in every single video going forward, drop them in the comments below. But let's get into the rest of the video. All right, you guys, if you didn't know, my name is Marcellus. I'm the co-founder of Yoka Tea. We're a third space in Seattle. And I documented the whole journey of opening that cafe on Instagram, on Yoka, and on my personal page as of late. And I'm excited to say that we're officially back. So today we're going to be talking about one thing, and that's my experience. All right, the first thing I want to talk about is the sacrifices. This is the first cafe that I ever opened, obviously. I've opened businesses before. I work in real estate, as most of you probably know. But sacrifices is a big one that I've realized is so prominent when opening a business, especially a cafe, because you kind of have to be an operator, which means that I have to work as a barista pretty much. Well, it used to be like every day, but now I work about 4 to 5 days a week. And with that comes longer hours, because after the shift, you have to do admin work. And a lot of things that I've sacrificed is family time, not being able to go out with friends, even date nights, just because we're so tired after a long shift. But this is one that I didn't think would be a big one when it comes to opening a cafe, but it has been one of the bigger things that I've noticed regarding my experience of opening a cafe. And then the second thing is margins. So margins are like super low. Coffee has gotten super expensive. We use sight glass over in San Francisco. Obviously, being in Seattle, that means that we have to import our beans. So shipping cost is expensive. The beans itself, because it's specialty coffee, it's more expensive just naturally. And then with matcha, when we first opened our cafe, matcha wasn't really a huge commodity. It just kind of hit that influx of traffic when we opened our doors after like the first week. So on day 1, I remember we opened on a Friday or a Saturday. We sold out of matcha because we didn't think it was going to be that popular. And then we had to figure out how to get more matcha for day 2, day 3, and day 4. During that summer, we realized that, okay, we need to start doubling up on our matcha inventory. And because of that, all the prices started to go up, because it wasn't just us who were requesting all this matcha. There was a true shortage that happened. And you guys probably already know about the matcha shortage, but now it's just like double, triple the cost. of what we used to pay when we first opened yoga. So margins are very low. So if you're planning on opening a cafe, just keep that in mind. It's going to be really expensive, and you have to do a lot of volume and keep track of your COGS and your labor costs. On that note, these things are items that I had to learn because I've never operated a cafe. I've never worked as a barista. All of this was new to me. But we have COGS, labor, scheduling, waste, and pricing. Starting with pricing, in the very beginning, we were honestly just matching our competition because we didn't really want to overcharge or undercharge. But we didn't realize that this isn't matching your pricing with other cafes isn't doing you any justice, because what one cafe pays for something isn't necessarily what you're going to be paying for your ingredients and all that other stuff. So in the beginning, we're actually shooting ourselves in the foot, not making any money. So looking at our P&Ls from the first quarter or the first 2 quarters, we were in the red, which is very, very bad. But on paper, it looks like it's good because you're seeing money coming in, but you don't really recognize it until you track your COGS and all that. On that note, COGS, you have to find ways to build relationships with your vendors, your suppliers, even your landlord. What does your rent look like for the next 3, 5, 6 years? So tracking that is really important. It's something I had to learn. Labor costs in Seattle is so expensive. So minimum wage in Seattle right now is $21.33, and that's not including tips. So on average, baristas are making around $28 to $35 an hour, depending on how much hours you're working. So that's a huge one. Waste. How do you track waste? I didn't really know what this meant, to be honest. I just thought that, okay, you make coffee, you make matcha, you sell it, you'll run out, you buy more. But in reality, you have to track inventory and all that stuff to make sure you're not throwing money out the window. And then scheduling. This goes in line with labor costs. So if you are scheduling your baristas, let's say 40 hours a week, how many people are working 40 hours a week? And what does that look like entirely as a team for a whole week's period? So if you don't know how many hours you're scheduling people per week, you're not going to know your bottom dollar. It's hard to see what your margins actually are. But yeah, if you don't know your bottom dollar, and if you don't know what your numbers look like, you're just throwing money out the window. All right, the next thing is going from pop-ups to brick and mortar and what the differences look like. So I would say the pros versus the cons. The pros from going from pop-ups to brick and mortar was it's more stable. You can kind of track your traffic a little bit, more efficiently. And the customer experience is definitely better because you don't have to wait in line outside unless it's a really long line for some reason. People can sit in, catch up with a friend. You can express greater hospitality efforts when you have a true brick and mortar versus a pop-up. And then the weather. Yes, weather plays a factor in Seattle, even with a brick and mortar, but an example, if we had a pop-up cart, we couldn't be outside if it's pouring down rain. But at least if we have a brick and mortar, people can come inside, wait inside, you get the gist. And then from the cons, there's definitely higher fixed costs. So we have rent, triple net, all that good stuff. We have staffing and utilities. Staffing obviously is a big one. Like I said, minimum wage here in Seattle is very high. And then utilities are very expensive. Obviously we're paying for AC and heating and all that good stuff and water. And then there's just never ending maintenance, whether that's short circuiting your breaker, our ice machine breaks consistently. There's just a lot of things that you have to keep track of when opening actual brick and mortar. And those are all things that I've learned along the way of how to repair things, how to have a good Rolodex to call people when these things go down. But yeah, that's why relationships are very important. And a huge one is the mental side of things. It's not just physically exhausting, it's definitely very mentally exhausting because every decision that you make on a daily basis really affects the business, your team, your partners, and overall the customers. And the customers and the team is pretty much the heart of the whole thing. So this is very big. And I think that for me specifically, genuinely, I would say I'm pretty level-headed and I don't really get too emotional. I don't get too high, too low. And I thought that opening a cafe, I'd be able to handle it. But genuinely speaking, I feel my mental health is definitely stable and healthy, I would say, but it does go through its ups and downs, which is why balance is very important. And giving back to yourself is very important. But I've learned a lot through opening a cafe, and just building mental toughness has been a huge one throughout this first year of being a cafe owner. All right, so those are just a few notes regarding my experience opening a cafe and after being in the space for 1 year. But there are a few more questions that you have asked me that I wanted to close with. And the first one is, should you lease or should you buy? And if you can buy a building for a good price and operate and lease it back to yourself, that's the long-term goal. So if you have the capital to do that and you have the opportunity that pops up, definitely go for that. But most of the time, if you have a cafe space and you're trying to open a cafe, that doesn't work like that. So lease is sometimes the only option you have. But if you do lease, make sure you get a good deal and you negotiate and find someone that can negotiate for you if you don't know how to do so. What are some things you should look out for? I think bad plumbing, old electrical, HVAC issues, like all the MEP stuff, you should definitely look into that and get an inspection done, or just like take note of those things, right? Like familiarize yourself with what those things look like, how they're utilizing the space, what the existing business use those things for. And then I would say like parking and zoning, like know your zoning requirements, see if things are permitted beforehand. Look what parking looks like. Do you have a garage? Is it free parking on the street? Is there public transportation nearby? Those are all things you should look out for. And the last one, on a similar note, how important is parking? I think that parking is one of the most valuable assets to your business. So if you have parking nearby, whether it's street or garage, like just know that that's always going to be a plus. In Madrona, it's free parking. There's tons of street parking in the neighborhood and on the actual main street that we're on. And it's very accessible for those who take public transportation. Not only that, it's a small neighborhood, it's family friendly, and there's a lot of things to do specifically in that area. There's a beach, there's a park, there's other small boutiques, other good restaurants that our guests can visit if they're coming to Yoka specifically. So I think if you can find a space that has good parking and it's very community driven, that's a recipe for success. Despite everything, I'm very grateful for this opportunity and season in my life, and it's been a true blessing building this with my partner. I think that Yoka has taught me more than any textbook, any mentor, any self-help book has ever taught me, and I'm forever grateful for that. And I'm excited to continue to build out our second space, which I'll be documenting along the way on this channel and on my Instagram. But yeah, if you're opening a cafe yourself, or maybe you're interested in opening one or a pop-up cart, and if you have questions, just drop them in the comments below, and I look forward to answering those in future videos. But if you're already subscribed, thank you so much. If you're not, leave a like and subscribe to help this channel grow. I appreciate you guys, and I'll catch you on the next video.